Odds to win it all in March Madness. It's Duke, followed by Auburn, Florida, Houston, and Alabama. He's the head coach of the Auburn Tigers. His 11th year there. He's Bruce Pearl. It was 6 years ago in Minneapolis. I had you in studio. You had your team in the Final Four. And I said to Paulie, I'm going to make Bruce Pearl cry that day. And you did shed a tear, a light tear. But I got you to cry. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm great. I'm not going to try to make you cry this time.
You know, of all your great accomplishments over the course of your career, I hope my shedding a tear isn't one of them.
It was just a goal to see if I could, bring out that emotion, because you're an emotional guy. You say you cry a lot. I don't know if you've cried the last two games that you lost. No offense here, the timing of this, but when's the last time you cried?
Let's see. I probably cried after we beat Kentucky at Rupp, and won the championship. I would say probably. I'm pretty passionate. You talk about family, talk about the Lord. Talk about the blood, sweat, and tears that go into all the things that it takes to win a championship. In other words, just like putting up with me and my expectations, my accountability, my temper. I'm grateful, and blessed. And did not cry after we lost to Texas A&M and Alabama, because we've lost 4 games. We've lost to Duke and John Shire at Duke. We lost to Todd Golden at Florida. And those had been the only 2 losses we had for a long time. And so for a while, I could say, like, the only coaches in the country that I'm willing to lose to are Jewish coaches. John Shire and Todd Golden. Like, if you're not Jewish, I'm not losing to you. We Jews don't like to lose very often, in case you haven't noticed, with Am Yisrael Chai. And but then Buzz Williams came in and he ranked 14th in the country, and then of course we lost to Nate Oates, and I don't think either one of those guys go to Temple.
Fritzy, would you check and see if the other 2 coaches are Jewish?
I'll take a look.
All right, thank you. Good yontif. Okay, so why'd you cry after you lost or won at Kentucky at Rupp Arena?
Yeah, I think just I guess the motion of it all, the being really, really grateful. Dan, I think what we do as we work in this ministry, or in this thing about coaching, we are built to win and compete for championships. We really, truly do. And at the end of the day, there was a championship that could be won. Now, I didn't cry when we won the Maui Invitational. that wasn't big enough. But I think because the league was so good and it was so hard, and every night you had to kind of get ready, and there were a lot of upsets. My basketball team did not get upset very much at all, in the sense that they beat a lot of people they were supposed to beat. And I could probably just cried out of gratefulness.
Who's the best player in college basketball this year?
Well, I think Janai Broom should be the college player of the year, because of all that he's accomplished and all that he's able to do for our team. Leads us in scoring and rebounding, and assists, and obviously stepped up in the biggest games. I think Cooper Flagg at Duke is going to be one, if he's not the first player drafted, is going to be one of the top player drafted. And Cooper is an amazing player who plays so hard and impacts the game so much. But what Auburn has done this year through this league, to have 16 quad 1 wins, has never been done before. That means we had 20 games against the quad 1. Now, when you're playing a quad 1 game, I don't care where you're ranked, 1 through 35. Let's say we've got a 55, 60% chance of winning that game, even if we're playing against a team that's 20. And to win 16 of those out of 20 is just unprecedented. And so, therefore, I feel like our best player is the best player in college basketball.
Okay, let's say you're coaching Cooper Flagg.
Yep.
And you want him to come back for another year, but you want him to realize he wants to come back for another year. not you selfishly as a coach. How would you go about trying to convince Cooper Flagg to stay one more year?
Well, first of all, I would only try to convince him to do it if I truly felt like it was in his best interests, not just in mine. And
have you seen the Washington Wizards roster, Bruce?
Yes, I have. Here's the one factor that I would ask him to consider. Dan, you know this because you've been doing this a long time. It's not how much you make, it's how long you can make it. That's the truth. And so the question for Cooper Flagg would be, what's the best position for you to be in for your second and your third contract? And if there can be any discussion about the fact that at 18 or 19, when you are in position at age 21, maybe to have to sign that second big contract. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. People that are wealthy have made it for a long time. And so that's the only thing I would look at as far as what might be in his best interest is, would waiting another year put him in a better position to sign that second and third contract that takes him from being rich to wealthy.
He's only 18.
That's right.
Crazy.
That would be the only factor.
We're talking to Bruce Pearl, Auburn head coach. SEC conference tournament starts on Friday. We've talked about a variety of things the NBA has, face of the NBA. Could we get the non-North America basketball players to play against the U.S.-based players in the All-Star game? Like, where do you see, the globalization of basketball is the future in Europe and other countries more so than it is in the United States? If you consider, I could probably give you 7 or 8 of the top 10 players in the game, and they're not from the United States. Yeah.
I think the game is in great shape, Dan, in the sense that worldwide, it's really, really popular. And you're right. Some of these international players, European players, are playing the game better than our guys have. One of the factors has been just the skill level that they are brought up through a training program that isn't like high school, AAU, college, so on and so forth. At the same time, interest in our game and the college game has never been better. Like the numbers that we're pulling for the best, this is a tremendous regular season in college basketball, just the SEC. How many ranked teams against ranked teams? And then how many of those games delivered? Like the last 2 Saturdays in the SEC, Alabama, Tennessee, overtime, Auburn, Alabama, overtime. And the ratings are really good. I don't know. I read a little bit about what's going on with the NBA and but I couldn't tell you why some of those numbers are down, but our numbers have never been stronger.
But the talent level, I mean, they're young. They're, these guys, Joker's, 30 or, somewhere around there. But if you put in Giannis, you put in Embiid, and you put in Luka, Shai Gilgeous, from Canada. And maybe we go back to the Dream Team, that the Dream Team in '92 sort of, birthed this. They spawned all of this. I'm just curious, does U.S. basketball try to model itself after, instead of this AAU, and we've seen that basketball, it can be pretty ugly. Talented, but ugly. Feels like, what Europe is doing in other countries is they get you into a system, learn how to handle the ball, learn, the fundamental, be a big guy, handle the ball on the perimeter, like all of these things. Feels like the U.S. is missing out on that opportunity.
Well, I think there are people that are in the professional basketball and world basketball that are studying this very factor right now. They're absolutely looking at it. The best explanation I can have for it is the age that they have these European kids starting to train, the specialization into the one particular sport. They don't have the same, rules as far as how many hours you can or can't train, whether you're a high school player and you can only practice a certain amount of time, and certainly in college, so on and so forth. I think the other thing too, the skill level right now is what is dominating our sport, in the sense that the men are so big and they're so strong and they're so athletic that now we're putting 5 guys out there on the perimeter at the 3-point line and spreading the floor just so that we have some space to be able to drive down the lane and make plays, because hardly ever anybody is putting a post player on the inside because there's just no room for him. So in some ways, the size and the athleticism of the American player that may have been a dominating force in basketball is now no longer as an important a cog as the ability to spread the floor and have the skills to be able to shoot and handle, which is more akin to the European player.
Okay, but what would you do with Shaq if he was your center?
Oh, I'd find a way. I have Janai Broom right now, and we're going to find ways to get him inside and run our offense accordingly. So, no, you give me Shaq. His big ass is going to be on the block, and good luck. The only way you're going to stop him is to hack a Shaq him.
Who's the best player you recruited? Didn't get, but the best player you recruited.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. AJ DeBansta was somebody that young man that's going to BYU. He grew up in Boston and actually grew up in Brockton, which is really a town outside of where I grew up. And we got in early on him, and he's got a great family. And he was one of the highest rated players I think I've ever, not gotten. Anthony Edwards, maybe in Atlanta, would have been another one that we worked on but didn't get. There's probably a long list of kids I finished second on, but those are two probably pretty big names.
Tom Izzo said Chris Webber made him cry because he thought he was getting Chris Webber. And then you lose him to Michigan. That's painful.
Oh, yeah. No, that definitely is. I remember when Tom was an assistant for Judd Heathcote, and they were playing in the old Jennison Fieldhouse. And so I don't know that Michigan State's program was in position when Chris Webber was coming out of Country Day High School in Detroit to pick Michigan State over Michigan. And Tom Izzo hadn't quite done what he'd done now.
Yeah, but you still had the Magic Johnson era.
That's right. And that's about, I don't want to speak to Michigan State basketball history, but the perception of Michigan's program at that time was much stronger than Michigan State's.
Where were you in your career when Bird and Magic arrived on the scene in college basketball?
I was just coming out of high school. I was just starting at Boston College for Dr. Tom Davis, starting to be a manager and work in the industry. So
you're a lifer. You're a lifer, aren't you?
I was at BC in 1978. Before the Big East was born, I saw Dave Gavitt get that thing started. Dr. Tom Davis and the job he did at Boston College goes way under the radar because of, Louis Carnesecca and John Thompson, Rolly Messamino, just Jim Boeheim and UConn and all. And we were at BC kind of doing great in those early years of the Big East. They almost took Holy Cross. Boston College had to write a $50,000 check, and the athletic director, Bill Flynn, at the time, wasn't sure that was going to be a good enough investment. Had to get a donor named Bernie Polanski to write that check. Otherwise, Holy Cross would have been in the Big East, and now the ACC, not Boston College.
Wow. Who do you get mistaken for in public?
Sometimes Lou Ferrigno. Like the incredible, the Green Monster. That back when I was a little bigger. Not anymore. Every now and then, Greg Brady. Remember Brady Bunch? I get when I have the afro, a little bit of that. And on a really good day, 30, 40 years ago, Tom Jones.
Oh,
Tom Jones?
Yeah. Well, if women start throwing their underwear at you at an Auburn game, like, Tom Jones in concert, I'm thinking a little bit of Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like Larry David's good buddy, like a smaller maybe just the face and your voice. You could be, Jeff Garland.
I've gotten a lot great. Coaches, we do age in doggy years.
Are you okay? Coaching seems to be the fun, easier part than the NIL and the recruiting. Is that fair?
Yeah, coaching, because coaching is still, teaching and developing and the gym and the ball and look, I like NIL, Dan, because we're way overdue. Thank God for NIL, for you, for me, and it would make this country great. And obviously, the numbers that these kids are getting right now tells you how late the NCAA was to recognizing the value of these student athletes. Now, listen, right now there are no rules, there are no regulations. We got to find some. We got if we're gonna have a national champion, Dan, then we truly need to be playing more by the same rules. They play more by the same rules in Major League Baseball, the NFL, and the NBA right now than we are in college, and we are trying to figure it out. There needs to be bipartisan support in Washington, D.C. to try to find a way to bring this great college system back while we're able to compensate the student athletes, wait for what they're worth, but there's got to be some guardrails. Senator Ted Cruz has got legislation right now, but you know how Washington, D.C. is completely dysfunctional. And if the Republicans want it, the Democrats won't. We got to find a way to bring it to be able to have the intercollegiate system, what we do, and still compensate our student athletes. And I think that's the best way to doing it. Right now, we're just putting Band-Aids on it, and we're all trying to navigate it.
Great to talk to you. Congrats on the success. Hopefully you don't run into a Jewish head coach the rest of the season, but thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Dan, and thanks for not making me cry.
All right. This time. That's Bruce Pearl. Friday SEC tournament, they will get underway. Opponent to be determined.